A very warm welcome to the show. Now, as the race towards the 2023 elections gather momentum, the founder of the Household of God Church, Reverend Chris Okotie, is calling for a postponement of the polls and proposing an interim government as the solution to Nigeria's political problems, which he says has not delivered democratic dividends to Nigerians. Now, Okotie says the interim government that he is proposing will eliminate the legislative arm of government and empower local governments with more powers. He disclosed this during a church service in Lagos to commemorate his 63rd birthday. Now, Okotie, who tagged his proposed interim government as a government of reconciliation and reconstruction, explains that professional associations will be enabled constitutionally to acquire legislative powers as a replacement for the removal of the legislature from the country's political system. Let's listen to him.
My disquisition this morning was about the presidential system as a system of governance that has failed this country woefully. We must invent a new democratic philosophy that comprises and enhances all of the dreams that we have with a view to bringing them to fruition. And that is why I'm advocating an interim government as a temporary measure to rectify some of the aberrations and anomalies that we have, not only in the Constitution, but in the practice of our presidential system. Because that system is predatory in its preoccupation. It is rapine in its disposition. It has destroyed our nation. It has polarized us, balkanized our society, fractured our people, and demoralized us. We must do something. So I'm appealing to all of the presidential flag bearers to temporize and maintain a hiatus peacefully so that we can enter into an interim government that will rectify all of these problems that we have and become the instrumentality for the crystallization of the new Nigeria of our dreams.
Well, I'm now being joined gladly from Lagos by the founder of the Household of God Church International Ministries, Pastor Christopher Okotie. I mean, a famous Nigerian, well-known, but lots of elderly ones and young ones. I mean, a musician, a cleric, someone who holds the nation dear to his heart. So good to have you join us, Reverend Chris Okotie. And you're looking so wonderful. I mean, you're aging gracefully, if I may put it that way. A lot of young Nigerians and older Nigerians who would have seen you right from your music days to your transformation to being a cleric who will say, look, I mean, age has been very, very fair to you. Tell us more about how you're taking this new feeling on your 63rd birthday.
I've often told people that I belong to the Methuselah clan. When you look at the Bible, it tells you that Methuselah was the oldest man in history. And the reason is because he was a witness. His father was translated to the heavens, and God had to keep him to disseminate that information. And so he gave him the necessary longevity to fulfill that mandate. I consider myself a witness, and therefore I have appropriated the blessings, the benediction involved in that transaction, which is to disseminate biblical information that will all go well for the salvation of the people. I thank God for that.
Okay, interesting. And you're looking very presidential. So what are the presidential dreams you've been having of recent? Or revelations, if I may call it that way?
We've been talking about the fact that the presidential system of governance is faulty ab initio. It has pulverized our national psyche. It has polarized us like never before. Our society is balkanized. We have become enemies, and we need to do something. We find that the democracy that we envisaged at the beginning is not what we are practicing today. What we are seeing is what I call partisanism. Government of the party for the party, or by the party for the party. See, and that is opposed to the classical definition of democracy, which is government of the people, by the people, for the party. For the people. So the party has taken over. That is why we are seeing all the aberrations and the abnormalities. And it has become necessary to do something, and something really drastic at this point.
You're proposing an interim government. This has pitched you against lots of Nigerians because, I mean, a lot of Nigerians have very sour memory of interim governments in the country. And the last one we had was in 1993. And we all know what happened with the Shonekan government. In just 82 days, that government was sacked by the military. Aren't you trying to deconstruct the Nigerian state against its own people?
Not at all. Not at all. It has become absolutely necessary to go into an interim government as a necessary, let me put it this way, a mechanism that would be needful for the crystallization of the new Nigeria of our dreams. If we proceed in this path, it's a journey in futility, it's a Sisyphean quest. It's like seeking to embrace some transient mirage. It's not going to work. It is true that the example that you give, that you just gave here, was fraught with difficulty, but that doesn't mean that we cannot practice it. There is nowhere else to go. This direction leads to nowhere. It's going to take us back to square one. And our society is so fractured at this time that we need something that will pacify the people. Some kind of a palliative, an amelioration that will heal the wounds of the Nigerian people. Because the party system, this system that we're practicing now is not democracy. I call it partisanism. Government of the party, by the party, for the party. It should be government from the people, for the people, with the people. That's what this is supposed to be. But that's not the case. We can enter into an interim government constructively, where we deal with the problems of our constitution. We deal with the federalism that we are supposed to be practicing, and all of the difficulties that we have encountered as a result of a misconception of what true federalism is. Now, there's a restructuring that must take place. Now, all of these things that we must do cannot be done by an external government. No government, no sitting government can do this because of, party considerations and things like that. So we need to deviate from this course and enter into an interim government. There's a philosophy in physics that is called solvitur ambulando. What it simply means is that as you move along, you will come to the solution. But I can say to you now that our presidential system has stagnated, completely struggled. So the next step we must take is to go into a place where we can bring sanity to our political climate, where we can begin to appreciate the responsibilities that leaders have.
Okay, sorry to just cut in there, because I want us to be very straight and clear here. Where will the government derive the powers to be able to ask for an interim government to come in place? It was easier with the military to be able to call for an interim government, but not with a democratic government with a president that already has a secure tenure and the National Assembly that already has a secure tenure. Where will this new law or guiding form of legislation that will be able to allow for the formation of an interim government come from, considering that even you are a lawyer yourself, and you know that there must be procedures to be followed before such an interim government is put in place?
I'm fully persuaded that the president has the capacity to effect all the necessary changes for the survival of our nation. There comes a time in the evolution of a nation where you have to take drastic measures if you don't want that nation to become extinct or to fall into a certain fragmentation that is irreconcilable. So what we must do is, like I said now, is galvanize the Nigerian people into a conversation that will lead to that kind of transition. And when we collate all this information, I'll send to the president as a transcript and to the House of Assembly. It's the will of the people. That's what democracy is predicated on. And if the people understand that that's the only way forward, the necessary laws can be made and the president can sign. And I believe this could be President Buhari's greatest legacy. It is absolutely needful, and there's no other way to go. The man was not made for the law was made for man. And therefore, we cannot get into a situation where we're saying there's a situation of such immutability that we cannot change it. It can't be changed. It must be flexible. It must be done in a manner that it reflects the wishes of the people, and then it guarantees the existence, a corporate existence of our nation. So I think it is very, very easy to do once we have the will, and the Assembly, the National Assembly, is in cahoots with the President as far as this is concerned. It can be engendered.
And now, you must have heard legal luminary Chief Afe Babalola calling for almost the same thing that you're asking for. Is there a difference from what you're proposing from his own proposal, or you think it's almost the same vision that you both share?
I have not examined the proposals that he's made, but the important thing is that he recognizes the need for an interim government. Nigeria needs to go into a surgical operation. There are too many aberrations within our constitution. That constitution is not a democratic constitution. The federalism that we're operating is not constitutional. That is an aberration of that definition. It's a terminological inexactitude. And I'm saying that things have degenerated to such a point that the difference between politicians and patriots will become very obvious. Are you a politician or are you a patriot? And if you're a patriot at this time, you know that concluding the presidential elections will take us nowhere. It is just going to take us back to square one. And that's why I appeal to the presidential flag bearers that they should temporize and maintain some kind of a hiatus to enable the Nigerian people gather themselves together, come under a canopy that will enable us restructure our nation and get on with the work of the pursuit of happiness to make sure that we still remain a nation. It can be done, and I believe that it will be done somehow.
And with 8 months to the next general election, presidential election to be very specific, aren't you calling for anarchy? I mean, because we are close to the next election, why should we be going into an interim government? This same election is where the people exercise their will.
You must understand, democracy in itself does not necessarily mean that people have to vote. It doesn't. It just requires assent. For instance, in 2019, President Buhari pulled about 15 million votes. That means it's not everybody who voted for him. But he became president because there is an acquiescence. There's an understanding that this, no matter how many people vote, whoever wins the largest number of votes becomes president. The people are in agreement with it. See, whether they vote or they don't. And so what we're talking about here is that we don't have to go to the polls. We don't. We just have to come to a point where there is an agreement and understanding that this process is inimical to the existence of our nation. And that if we continue this process, it will jeopardize the coexistence of all our people. And that the signs are very, very obvious. And that this democracy that we are practicing has been hijacked by elitism, mysticism, and satanism. And that we must do something about it. There is a concept that is called obscurantism, which is the fact that people are opposed to new knowledge, inquiry, and reform. Nigeria cannot be guilty at this time of political obscurantism. We must understand that society is dynamic, and that if we truly care about the people, and if this is a democratic country, then all that matters is what the people desire, not what the politicians desire, who are in the minority. And I believe that if you talk to the Nigerian people, they will tell you what I'm saying, that something has to be done, and it has to be done quickly. 8 months is more than enough time to reorganize ourselves and pull ourselves together in a patriotic cohesion that will lead to the formulation or the engendering of an interim government. It must be understood that an interim government is like a surgical theater. When people are ill, you don't transfer them from one house to another or from a brother to a father. You take them to a place where they can find medical help. And the interim government is a necessity at this time. And anyone who is a patriot would know that that is what is required at this time. There is no amount, there is no political equilibrium that can take Nigeria from the quagmire of the confusion that we have seen. And the politics are degenerated to such a charade, you know, and it's an embarrassment to our nation. It's an embarrassment, and we must do something. And that is why I'm advocating
now,
the placement of an interim government.
Now, you were saying something about our polity being filled with a lot of, you said elitism, mythicism, and satanism. I want you to expand on that. I mean, what made you to reach such a conclusion about Nigerian politics? Is it because of your failure in 2003, 2007, and 2011 to emerge as president of Nigeria?
Not at all. If you want to win an election, you join the dominant parties. I was not looking for a political career because I started this. I first ran for president in 2003. Now, if I wanted a political career, then the wisest thing to do would be to join one of the dominant parties. But I wasn't looking for a political career. I was looking for a tribune, a platform from which to begin to, you know, pontificate, if you would, concepts of political understanding that will bring change to the political system. So it wasn't because I was looking for an office. That was just a platform to let Nigerians know what my intellectual capacity is and the capabilities that I have. But if you look at what has happened in time, true that I have not been around that much, because what I call it is a tactical political catabasis. Sometimes it is necessary to withdraw or to retreat from the arena of conflict to facilitate a reassessment and re-examination of methodology or strategy. Now that hibernation creates a renewed zeal and recruitment at re-emergence. So I have not been idle. Like the eagle, I have maintained a vantage point or position in the firmament of political observation. And that is why I say that if you're going to fix the problem, you cannot be a part of the problem. I have not been a part of that problem deliberately because I have always known that the time is going to come when I'm going to be required to begin a certain advocacy for the people of the Nigerian state. Now, elitism is just that concept that we find in Nigeria, where we have what I call echelon politics. We have all those in the elitist club who pretend to be, you know, representatives of the people. But they are stooges. These are the ones who constitute the dramatis personae in the theater of political stoogism. When they speak, you hear their master's voice. It's ventriloquism. A ventriloquist is the man who can throw his voice at a distance. And that's what these oligarchs do, all these hegemons, the plutocrats. They use this elitist club to further their own agenda and hoodwink the Nigerian people into thinking that they have representation. And that is not true. Then you talk about mysticism, which is people who think that they own this nation and that without them Nigeria cannot get along and they need to be demystified. And they claim everything, what I call social irredentism. Everything belongs to them. And then you have Satanism, those who destroy the order. And they say, well, if my political party or if I don't win an election, then there will be chaos. This is the tripartite diabolical conspiracy that we have seen in the Nigerian politics. And that is why our politics has degenerated to such. It's like horse trading now. It is an embarrassment. It's a decimation of our national psyche. And I believe that the Nigerian state has stayed because there is a resilience that is embedded in our national psyche that must now be summoned to ameliorate the Nigerian people and rekindle faith in the Nigerian fraternity. And that is what I'm advocating. Because if we follow the path of politics, what is politics? It's just a science of governance. It is a sociological contraption that is devoid of emotion and conscience. What we're looking for is leadership. Because leadership, on the other hand, deals with the organization. It has to do with the communication of the human capacity within man in the organization of society for the subject of that society, which is the individual. So while politics looks at the state, leadership looks at the individual. And what is the state? That collective entity that represents a geographical expression of organized society. And that's where we have majored. And that's why I'm saying that this process has almost destroyed Nigeria. And you don't need me to tell you, go on the streets. Go on the streets and you see how we are so polarized. See how how much Nigerians have become enemies one with another. And it is just not going, it's not sustainable. And that is why we must do something, and we must do it now without any hesitation. Because procrastination is the thief of time, and we cannot afford it. We cannot afford it. Sometimes I get emotional about it, but I'm trying to restrain myself from the prolixity of political emotionalism.
All right, if I may
the truth of the matter is that...
Yeah, sorry. If I may just interject here now, Pastor Chris, why would you want to put yourself at the center of this interim government that you're proposing? If the Nigerian people do accept what you're proposing, why must it be a Pastor Chris Okotie to head this government that you are proposing? And some of your critics who are politicians in the field will call you a failed politician, and you want to gain from a process you have never been a part of for a very long period of time. What will you say to them?
I've never been bothered by what people say. There have been people who try to decipher the Chris Okotie enigma, and in their frustration, they articulate incoherent inconsistencies. For me, they are necessary. I call them a necessary comic relief from the tedium of the day. The truth of the matter is, for you to propose an agenda, you must have the understanding of how that agenda works. There must be a mechanical externalization of that which you have internalized. See, and like I said, if I wanted a political career, I would have joined the dominant parties. There are some of the people who are involved in the process today whose names are being touted, who were neophytes at the time I began this process. Some of them had not even come into a place where political consciousness was registered in their matrix. But yet, I stayed away from it because I recognized all along it was just not productive. It was just not going to work. And I believe that I have paid my dues, denominated in resilience and tenacity. That people who know me, who know my capacity and my intellectual capacity, will know that if I wanted to be a part of this bandwagon, I would have gone along and probably been in the hierarchy of governance by now. But I'm a patriot. I'm not a politician, I'm a patriot. And there's a vast difference. And that is why I have waited till this time, because I am a known face. My face is recognizable. And you think people know who I am, they know my antecedents.
You think that is enough for a Tinubu or Peter Obi or Atiku Abubakar to want to step down their ambition because a Pastor Chris is calling for an interim government to be put in place?
No, that's not what I'm saying. To say that is to make it look as if I am trying to enter into a place of self-aggrandizement. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we are at a place, at the cusp of a major crisis in our nation, and that patriots, those who still believe in the Nigerian brotherhood, must come together and profile solutions that will augur well for the unity and the well-being of our nation. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not the only one. I am just a popular voice, a recognizable face. And I believe that I have the solution to our problem. It is not my problem, it is our problem. It's our collective responsibility. We have the same destiny. No matter what it is that we do, no matter which political party that we belong to, we share the same destiny. And I'm saying here that these are great men. His Excellency, Abubakar Atiku, His Excellency Ahmed Bola Tinubu, His Excellency Peter Obi. These are great men, and ordinarily ought to go forward and find out if the Nigerian people are interested in their liberty, in their leadership. But what I'm saying is that that would not be the right process or the right path at this time because of all the circumstances, the existential adversaries that we have and the problems that face us today. And I know that they are patriots. And they're not doing it because Okotie said, they are doing it because Nigeria needs that. And that's the point. That's the crux of the matter. Nigeria needs to get off on a tangent, not on this path, and where we come to a place where we can resolve these issues amicably so that our nation can remain as a coherent, strong, viral nation.
proposal of yours and you're put at the head of such an interim government, what would you do differently to deconstruct this system that you're talking about and give us something better, which from your thinking is what we need at the moment?
I believe that the first thing we must do is eliminate the legislature. It's absolutely unnecessary in our present experience. The legislature represents the people. But I believe that part of the problem we've had is that the definition of democracy has been lost as a result of the practical demonstration of this tripartite system of governance. You know, in the House of Assembly, they work in committees. You have committee for education, committee for health and all of this. Those committees are associations that have been represented in the polity for many, many years. The Nigerian Bar Association was founded in 1933. The Nigerian Union of Teachers was founded in 1931. The Medical Association of Doctors, or Medical Association, was established in 1951. Even ASU was founded in 1978. You will find that most of these associations predate the political parties. And these are groups that band together, doctors banding together, lawyers banding together, market women banding together by a concept of what I call the concept of gregarious socialization. They form an organic nexus by way of endeavor and enterprise. And they have been in the polity for years. What I'm saying is, give them legislative powers. Enable them to have the capacity to make laws that affect them in their specialized areas of the firmament, so that we do not have to cater for all of these legislators and all the billions of naira that we spend. People representing people when the people can represent themselves. That's what I'm saying. When you eliminate that, then you eliminate political parties, because there is nowhere in the definition of democracy that political parties are a necessity. It was just something that was created by the rich people to dominate the poor. See, it's a patrician system. You don't need political parties to elect leadership. You don't. It's a venture that was created by the rich people, by the plutocrats, the oligarchs, the hegemons. I'm saying that if we allow the Nigerian people to
if I may interject here, are you not calling for diarchy, a mixture of a military sort of government and a democratic government? Because we've seen this happening. And how different is this solution that you're proffering from the parliamentary system, where, of course, we do not have governors? I mean, we've practiced parliamentary system before. You don't have governors. Governors are eliminated, but there's always a National Assembly in place. But now you're calling for the elimination of the National Assembly itself, which is the symbol of democratic development or democracy itself. If you're doing that, aren't we going back to military rule? Because in military rule, you only have the executive and all of this.
No, you probably didn't hear what I said. I didn't say that there wouldn't be legislation. I said that power will be transferred to the Nigerian people. So, for instance, you want to make a law concerning health. You go to the Nigerian Medical Association. You empower them to have the capacity to make the laws or start that process. I'm saying the Nigerian people will represent themselves. You want to make a law on transportation. You don't go to some senator or some member of the House of Reps. You go to the Transporter or Transport Association of Nigeria. They know what exactly is going on in that firmament, and they'll be able to give you laws that are more practicable. I'm saying you transfer legislative responsibilities to these professional associations. And they are not paid. They're volunteers. See? That's what I'm saying. And the cost of maintaining this tripartite system of government will be highly reduced. So when you give that autonomy to the people, then you are being more democratic. This is what I'm saying. You are not saying, you are saying that the legislature is if it is eliminated, then we're going back to maybe it's diarchy or some military. No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. I'm saying give the Nigerian people the authorization to make laws for themselves. They already have representations within the polity. They don't need you to duplicate that in the House of Assembly. That's all I'm saying. And when you do that, then you don't need political parties. And if you don't have political parties, then you don't need ministers. You don't need governors. We can have some kind of superintendents in the states. I have a solution for that. We can elect, we can get through the same process of using that, what I call the democratic box, where you draw from. If you say you are interested in a particular position, you qualify for it, you know, and then your name is put in the box, and people come and draw. And if your name comes out, then that's your position. We don't need campaigns. We don't need godfatherism.
Pastor Chris, as we try to round off this conversation, I just want you to point out where in the world we've had this system of government running, the same system that you're proposing, quickly.
There is no way it is. Nigeria is going to offer the world a new concept of democracy. We're a creative people. We're a resilient people. We're an intelligent people. We don't need to enter into this system that is an affront to our cultural sensibilities. We have borrowed from Britain, it didn't work. We've borrowed from America, it didn't work. So we are overwhelmed by a fatalistic mimic spirit. We can create a system of governance that is in consonance with our cultural realities. So many times when I hear people comparing Nigeria with Malaysia, with South Africa, with this, I say to them, yeah, you may do that but the comparisons only hold true in academic dissertations and humdrum political punditry.
All right.
Yes, there might be parallels. There might be parallels in the geopolitical achievement quotient, but these comparisons are inconsistent with our contextual realities. And I'm saying that Nigeria can create a system that is viable.
All right.
Many of us have been in the university.
Well, we must thank you so much, Pastor Chris Okotie, for this innovative democratic governance system that you're proposing, and Nigeria is going to be the very first in the world that will practice it. Is it a revelation from God, actually, to help the country out?
I don't want to create a religious provincialism, but definitely every system of oppression is pulverized by Almighty God. Change derives from a vertical impetus that translates into a movement. So I believe that prayers have been said and that God has come to deliver our nation.
Okay. We must thank you so much, and we wish you well. You were former presidential candidate of the Justice Party in 2003, of course, the Fresh Party in 2007 and 2011, until you quietly eased yourself out of the political scene and you're quietly easing yourself in again. We wish you all the best, and we hope a lot of Nigerians would have learned a thing or two from your proposals. Thank you so much for being on the show.